Hello, my name is Cassandra Euphrat Weston, and I will be performing selections from Maxine Kumin's Sonnets Uncorseted. She was 22. He was 53. A duke, a widower with 10 children. They met in Paris, each in exile from the English Civil War. Virginal and terrified, still she agreed to marry him. Though women were mere chattel, spinsterhood made you invisible in the 1600s. Marriage was arranged, hers a rare exception. Despite a dowry, a woman never could own property. Your womb was just for rent. Birth control contrivances, a paste of ants, cow dung mashed with honey, tree bark with pennyroyal, all too often failed the applicant. If anything went wrong, you bled to death. You bore and bore and bore, as you were taught, screaming sometimes for days in childbirth. To bring forth was a woman's fate. But not for Margaret Cavendish, childless Duchess of Newcastle. After the head of Charles I had been detached, and the Restoration seated a new monarch, she and the Duke returned to his estate where nothing discomposed their paradise. How rare, two lovers scribbling away, admiring each other's words in privacy. He, polymath, equestrian, playwright; she, philosopher, fantasist, poet. Poems, plays, philosophical discourses on platonic love, a chapter on her birth, breeding, and life, and an apology for writing so much upon this book about herself, even some inquiries into science. Years in chosen isolation, the Duchess filled with words, and the Duke with reassurance. Even this outburst did not discomfit him. Men are so unconscionable and cruel. They would fain bury us in their beds as in a grave. The truth is, we live like bats or owls, labor like beasts, and die like worms. Pepys called her mad, conceited, and ridiculous. I went to college in the 1940s, read Gogol, Stendhal, Zola, Flaubert, read Pushkin, Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, and wrote exams that asked contrast and compare. Male novelists, male profs, male tutors, not a single woman on the faculty. Nor was there leaven found among the poets I read and loved. G.M. Hopkins, A.E. Housman, Auden, Yeats. Only Emily, not quite decoded or yet in the canon. 10 years later, I struggled to break in the almost all-male enclave of poetry. Then one of us sold a poem to the New Yorker. A week later, the other was welcomed in Harper's. But even as we published our first books, the visiting male bards required care. We drove them to their readings far and near, thence to the airport just in time to make their flight to the next gig. "You drive like a man," they said by way of praise. And if a poem of ours seemed worthy, they said, "You write like a man." When asked what woman poet they read, with one voice they declaimed, "Emily Dickinson." Saintly Emily, safely dead. Modern women poets were dismissed as immature, their poems pink with the glisten of female organs. The virus of their disdain hung in the air, but women were now infected with ambition. We didn't merely saunter decade by decade. We swept on past de Beauvoir and Friedan and took courage from Carolyn Kaiser's knife blade Pro Femina. I will speak about women of letters, for I'm in the racket, urging stand up and be hated, and swear not to sleep with editors. If a woman is to write, Virginia Woolf has Mary Baton declare, she has to have 500 a year and a room with a lock on the door, a sacred space where Shakespeare's sister Judith might have equaled his prodigious gift. Or not. She might have simply floated there, set loose in the privilege of privacy, herself unwritten, under no one else's eyes. Oh, Duchess, come, hurtle 5 centuries to a land of MFAs in poetry, of journals in print, and even more online, small presses popping up like grapes on vine, reading taking place in every cranny, prizes for first books, some with money. Come to this apex of tenured women professors, where sessions on gender and race fill whole semesters and students immerse themselves in women's studies. Meet famous poets who are also unabashed mothers, or singletons by choice, or same-sex partners, Black, Latina, Asian, Native American, white, Christian, Muslim, Jew, and atheist. Come! Join us, Duchess Margaret Cavendish.